مساحة زراحيم sorry no مساحة Menahot Daf Bet Amud Aleph. Menahot talks about Kurban Minha. Kurban Minha discusses Kol Menahot, old Menahot, Shnekmitzu Shlo Lishman, if the Kimitza, which is the process of removing flour, was taken out not for their own sake, Kishirot Kasher. As Shalo Alu Ablim Shem Hava, but it does not count towards the owner's responsibility for bringing one. Hot Minhat Hotel Minat can out, except for the exception will be for the Minha of a guy who sinned that has to bring one. A person who sinned for certain type of erot, whether they're not knowing he swore that he falsely testimony, or he entered the mikdash or ate food of atamer, he swore falsely. This requires the sinner's minha. And finally, the minha vasota. They are completely possible. Okay. Minhat hotel minhat can out into minhat of a sinner or a sota that was done not for the right sake. Or he placed the comets into a service vessel, not for the right sake, or he brought it to Mizbeach, or burnt it for the right, not for the right purpose. Or if he did one for the right sake, one not, or the first one for not right sake, then he did it for the right sake. Pisilot is pasul. Now, what does that mean? For example, Kesef Lishma Shalom when he did partial yes and no. L'shem min hat hotel l'shem min hadav. He did this correctly first for the sake of the sinner mincha, then he did it for a voluntary mincha. Shlo Lishma Lishma, or he did it vice versa. He did it first for the voluntary. Shem min hadav, shem min hadav. He first did the avodah for a voluntary one, then he did it for the correct one of the sinner mincha. Both of those are pasul. Why did the Mishnah in the beginning have to say except? Why is they accept it? Did not fulfill the obligation? Just say it. But they don't. The Gemara says, "Hakamash is teaching you a hidush." Does not go for the owner's obligation. But the mincha is kasher. And it doesn't make any other changes. What does that mean? Like Rabba says, be slaughtered and Allah for not for the right purpose. You can't now throw the blood on the beach for the wrong purpose as well. One reason is because of logic, one reason is pasuk. Even that's right logically, because Mishum Dishana, that once you change it once, Kol Hanan Dishana Bila Bazil. And a reason why you should keep on changing it, meaning just because you messed up once does not mean you continue messing up. Even in a Qur'an pasuk proof, Motzias V'Techa Tishmor Ba'astil Kashim Dat Lashim Lokecha Nadava. Nidava. What does this mean? That it's donation. Nederhu. It's not a donation. It's a vow. Karila Neder Kanadava. So why is it called a neder and nidava? The Gemara says Allah Im Kimash Dat Asita. If you did what you're supposed to do, great. You had neder, then it's a vow. If you didn't do correctly, nidava should be a vow. And you can't change the dava. And therefore, if you mess up one thing, don't continue messing it up. Whereas the limit of the does that mean our Mishnah should not be according to Rishimon? Then Hamad says what it says. Rabbi Shimon says, "Kol shem nachot shem shloshman kishirot omer nachot that were done not for the right purpose are kasher. Value b'lim shem hava, but they count towards the obligation. She'en menachot demot zvachim because menachot does not compare for the animal korban. She'akomet menachot shum marcheshet because if you did kimitza on a mahvat korban for the sake of marcheshet, mahvat and marcheshet are two different types of pans, so they're different type of korbanot, right? So therefore, if you're doing it with a mahvat, it's proof that you're doing it with a mahvat. I don't care what you had intention. The fact that you're using the mahvat pan, it shows. Let's say you're doing a kmitah on a dry mincha for the sake of a mincha with oil. Obviously, you're doing it for a dry one because that's what you have. You don't have the oil in there. But with an animal, it's not so easily to say that. Because it's only one type of slaughtering. Only type of blowing through the blood. Also one type of receiving the blood. That makes sense because he holds the Brata, which Rabbi Shimon said it's kasher. It's not a case where the guy did the kmitza for mahvat for macheshet. Kan becomes min mahvat min shum mahvat macheshet. But in the second case, where the guy used the mahvat for the sake of macheshet, why? Because since he had intention for the sake of a different korban, that's when it's pasul. Okay. Therefore, our Mishnah's words done improperly is referring to a case is where the mincha was done for the sake of a different type of mincha. In that case, you would agree that it is pasul. How would they explain the Breta? The Gemara says, give the same answer to Rabba, that he said, oh, the difference is when you change an intention of the actual korban versus the change you had the wrong owner in mind. Mishnah specifically talking about a case of having the wrong intention of the Kurban itself, not the owner. The time Mishnah said, "Ketel Lishman Lishman." Why we gave example of the wrong sake. L'shum minhat hotel l'shum minhat taba. If you messed up the intention for the sinner's mincha or the sake for a voluntary mincha, so obviously it can't be talking about a case. Ve'nami kedaka Mishnah Rabba. Maybe you want to give Rabba's answer. Kam bekomat mincha l'shum mincha. Kam bekomat mincha l'shum zerach. Maybe if there's a difference in having the wrong intention for a different mincha versus wrong intention for a different kurban, like an animal kurban. Whereas again, it's the same problem because how much tin mincha l'shum mincha Our Mishnah specifically mentioned Mincha for Mincha mess up. Ella Rabba must be according to the Rabba. Our Mishnah is not going to be Shimon. The Rabbi Shimon by the Stira, Rabbi Shimon runs himself. The Tanakh says, Rabbi Shimon says, Kodesh Kodeshim, who he kahatat v'cha Hashem. The mincha is very holy, like a hatat in Hashem. Yesh men kahatat, yesh men kahatat Hashem. Some minachot are like a hatat, some are like an Hashem. Mincha choteh harei kahatat. The sinner of a mincha is like a hatat kurban. Lefikach k'matzah shelo lishma pasul hatat. Therefore, just like a kurban hatat, if you do the kmitzah for the wrong purpose, it's pasul. Mincha deba harei ki Hashem. Then the donated mincha is like an Hashem. Lefikach k'matzah shelo lishma keshira. Just like the Hashem, if you have the wrong intention, the kmitzah for the wrong reason for mincha would also be kasher. Hashem, why else is it converted to Hashem? Ma Hashem kasher ben Moshe, af min hat nava kasher ben Moshe. So even though it's kasher, but like just like the Hashem, this minha would also be kasher, but it won't get kapara. Question against Rabbi Shimon said earlier, because he said that he will get kapara. Where Rabbi Shimon says you do get the intention doesn't do anything and therefore works. It's only a case where you had the wrong korban in mind, and where it does mess up is where you had the owner in mind. Our later by advances 1 second. Let's see. The fact that the Torah mentioned that a mincha is pasul through the wrong intention is based on a hekesh, a comparison between the words in the pasuk of Asham and mincha. Mali shinu kodesh, mali shinu balim. If that's the case, then who cares what type of mistake he made with intention? Whether it's a mistake of the kurban, mistake of the owner, should automatically pasul. The Gemara says, the logic answer of the fact that your actions prove what you're doing is logical. And therefore, the Rabbi Shimon because Rabbi Shimon throughout the Shas, Rabbi Shimon gives his answers and his reasoning of the pasuk is used to give reasoning for the answer. Meaning, if the reasoning of the pasuk does not apply, then the Isur does not apply. So it's over here. If the intention is not recognizable, like the Torah made as pasul, then it won't be pasul. If the minha's intention is recognizable, yani you're doing the wrong pan, then it's not pasul. Okay. That's the case, that if the tension is not recognizable, it does not make it pasul. If the bird olah, where the milika was done above the midpoint of the mizbeach, for the sake of a bird hatat, which is a big mistake. Why? Because technically, it should still prove that the action should prove that it's still an olah bird. Because if it was the hatat, the matahav would have to do the second half of the lower half of the mizbeach. So the fact that he's doing on top, I don't care what intention he had, he still did the right action. The Gemara says, "Atu hatat ha'of lemala mileta." But it's not true because sometimes you could do the milika bird above the left line. How more, like we said, milika b'chol makom mizbeach kasher. Anywhere you do milikas kasher. Therefore, since it's not only restricted to the bottom one, but it could be kasher on top, the fact that they did it on top does not make a difference. A bird olah they did below the middle of the line. Because the proof that it's an olah, they did it below. Because of the hatat, you would have to sprinkle it below. Why would it not be kasher? The Gemara says, how many people who are watching would say, that's not the squeezing of the sprinkling, that's the squeezing after he sprinkled. After you sprinkle, you squeeze the blood out of the neck. That can be done anywhere, and therefore that's what people would think. Next question. Bird hatat. He said the sprinkling of the blood was done below the line for the sake of an olah bird. And because the actions prove that it's a hatat, because it was an olah, the ma'av would have done above. When we say she done squeezing, not sprinkling. The Gemara says it's true. The fish Shimon saying specifically, menachot are not comparable to zvachim, and therefore the zvachim it's not comparable to animals. Not to birds, and therefore menachot are comparable to birds. And therefore, if the bird was sprinkled below the red line, you would say it proves it's a hatat, and I don't care that you did it for Allah. And that's how it would be compared to the mincha, mincha, and the